PR Connections Radio presents. This podcast is brought to you by LifeWave. Ready to elevate your wellness game? Meet X39 from LifeWave.com. This game-changing patch uses phototherapy to stimulate your skin, enhancing strength and stamina by channeling your body's innate energy. Simply apply it to harness infrared heat, naturally boosting your vitality. Want to learn more? Visit www.lifewave.com/VernD and step into a healthier, more active lifestyle today.
Hi, welcome back everyone to a new conversation. This episode, Liberating Menopause, gifted to communicate from PRConnectionsRadio.com. My name is Lisa Vasquez. I am your host. Looking forward to having this chat. And today we are talking about that double shift. I mean, the world has changed so much in a woman's life compared to me when I was growing up throughout this woman's workplace lifestyle. And, you know, it's really gone so global that there's an outlook of only about half of women describe their mental health as good. I mean, we say that it's good. I've talked in the past different episodes of a lot of different things that we hold back on in the workplace. And as we're evolving and things are changing into this new world, and we have to develop with it. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind, and we don't want to do that. But the biggest part about this new world is really opening up with honesty of what's really happening because of our past history. We have learned that so many chronic illnesses, so many accumulations of illness in time have broken women as they walk toward their future to end into retirement, and then they find themselves stuck. And so this conversation that I bring to you is because after working 45 years in the workplace, understanding, working with women, hearing conversations, today that conversation has changed so much when I'm speaking with women. And there's nearly 90% of women who believe that their managers would think negatively of them if, they admitted that they were struggling. And this goes with anything. I mean, we can't talk about our stages of the age that we're in, that emotional challenge, the anxieties, or I didn't sleep last night because I'm starting perimenopause, or I'm in menopause. And that comes at any age, not just becoming a super ager. Menopause can hit at any time. But again, this conversation is something that always stays in secret, and we need to make this loud. And by giving this voice to me to bring to you, I bring this with a girl's chat, a gal's chat, a woman's chat. I was able to combine myself as a 20-year-old young lady into a blissful woman in my 6th decade, loving every minute of it because I grew up with women. I was able to entangle myself in a lot of different emotional stages and ages because when they walked in, I have a 20-year-old mentality at this time in the beginning of my career, right? But these women had to be 50. So they're taking me into this other dimension of my world that I'm headed toward, and hopefully, some people don't even get that far into life, but I was on that road and I was developing all these different characteristics of a woman's life and understanding. And the biggest point was really to be listening and speaking. And these were hidden conversations that at that time also were so hidden that they weren't even speaking to the doctors about it because nobody understood. And we did not know how to understand and explain ourselves. So we're carrying 2 full-time jobs at this time of our life. And so much of that has changed from a long time ago. The jobs that we're paid for, and then we have that invisible job, the one that carries in our mind. And this is always on, right? We are always thinking, we are always doing something. The mental load is really a bigger laundry list than I could account for back in the days earlier. I really wanted to understand where was this conversation? Because we never had this type of conversation when I was growing up, so much about mental mind building or anything that would lead us in that direction. And today, because we were never taught anything like that, it is really giving us a very big, a lot of effects. Growing up years ago, uh, I was always taught, because I had to understand this. I was like, why didn't I understand about that mind building at the time? I was in the workplace. I was, I'm a woman. I was doing a lot of things. I mean, I had, eventually got married, had families, grew up, a lot of responsibilities, all those things. But now we have this other added responsibility that some people, these things are just a sudden drop, and all of a sudden we just find ourselves in a new place that we didn't know about. But before I get into that new place, I really wanted to understand. And when I looked back, I saw my era of life of growing up. We had just come into a bigger era of working out the body. Everything was about the body. I mean, aerobics came. I mean, they started putting on the sweatbands and the wristband sweatbands and, making sure that we had the right outfits to wear to go do those aerobics. The tights, the body suits, the correct shoes, gym shoes. I mean, today we still don't always wear the correct shoes and things that we work out in. But, it was being built at that time to be all about the body. And I mean, the brain and the body, I mean, of course they go together, and of course the mind will benefit, but our focus back then was the body, right? We wanted to make sure we had the perfect body, the balanced body. And there was so many drinks that were being put out. There was so many diet pills that were being put out. Everything was to bring you into that structure of the body. But we really didn't talk about, the brain health. We didn't talk about that. And then I wondered why. And, a lot of it, why women were so blindsided today in the workplace is because of this double shift. And it's so hard as we grew up again, up until honestly 5-6 years ago, right when COVID came out, is when really the mind, the mentality, focus of being in a meditation state to relax the mind, all this stuff just broke out really louder that day, right? When we were locked down, and this all evolved into an outburst of what happens to people who had weak minds at the time. And not even weak minds. I mean, they were kind of injured, right? There was an illness that we didn't even know that accumulated. And they didn't either until this all happened and it all burst out. And it's just started evolving. And today, it's all about the mindset. It's all about reacting with that mind building, resetting, and again, it's not really a reset. It's just the track we were never engaged on to work out. So this is why when I bring conversations to you, it's the educational support that I want to help guide you, because I know that the long road is there and I know that you have to travel it, but I also want to armor you with the tools, with what can benefit you, because everybody has different needs. But if I could drop a seed and plant it into a growth of something that is going to stabilize you and give you an aha moment and make you think, wow, that's right. I've been going to the gym and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, then you could start reaching out, and maybe you want to go take up that Tai Chi class, or, you want to go live in silence, because silence has a lot of voices. If you just sit there, listen, and open up your mind to hear it, right? Because it all starts in silence. That quiet, calming it down, bringing it in. But so this is why, that double shift hits so hard, because the stress, the sleep loss, what's happening today with AI taking over, and women, it's not that we're being taken over. It's that we need to start joining in, learning, so we can partner in it and have an understanding, having it controlled into a benefit instead of a disaster, because it could be leaving you behind, and that could be the disaster. Because if you don't know, I mean, it was just like us laymen's back in the day of typing, right? If we didn't know how to type, oh my God, we had to sit there and keep writing, right? And everybody's typing away, and I'm talking manual typers to power typers because those manual ones pretty rough. But point being is that if you didn't know how to type, you were going to have to do that hand writing. And here's where we are at today, again, with another burst, another breakout. And, it's still up in the air of where there's benefits with the AI project, or, some feel that it doesn't have a lot, but everybody has a different thought on how that is. Everybody has a different way that they're walking through this on their path and their journey of life. Where you're at today, maybe you're in a super agers mentality and you need to come back now a little bit because you passed up classes at 60 to take up computers, and now you're suddenly you might need them, because super agers today, we have so much more strength in body health, right? But building up that mind and getting it together to get into this new world, because this whole new world is really eliminating what we've grown up in the past, and it's somehow supposed to be empowering us more. But we also thought, that could have been good when we got the internet, but then we found out that, it's not as well, because it does have its challenges and it has its disappointments. So everything has its balance, and we just have to find that. But no one, again, taught us how to rebuild the mind, strengthen the neural pathways, and I want to get into that. Not to make you a scientist or become a doctor or anything, but if you could understand the connections, it's like understanding the wiring behind the walls, right? You want to know what's connecting. I mean, you don't have to be the one to plug into the walls to connect it, but in your mind, you do. You have to know that, oh my gosh, this is happening, or what's happening, signs and signals, things that, maybe you've been under the old white light too long, those lights that they have. I forgot what they're called. I'm sorry. But they're all white lights. And that those actually have an effect on our mentality, especially in the workplace. I used to hate that in my mammogram room, with that overhead light that was just really ruining my day. You want some sunlight. You want the windows to open. You want energy flowing in. And you look up and you have this bland lights. So light means a lot. But anyway, to protect that cognitive energy is to really have a good place to bring it into, right? And that all starts with you and the choices that you make, because when you bring it into the workplace, you need to have that centering done already, right? So that when you walk in, it's here I am, and let the day begin, right? Not walking in like, oh my gosh, this is this is gonna be terrible. The phones are already ringing and I didn't even start. Patients are already waiting outside the door. I see them coming in through the parking lot, and I still got to get it together. I mean, there's so much that happens with us when we're at work, and the ways that we come in, and especially that double shift. When you're leaving the other job, the one that comes from home, the one that they're seeing and showing it more as a loss of paid days, right? Because you have your paid job, but then you go to this other job that's, oh my gosh, the payment comes through the body, through, it could be stressing you and dragging you down. There can be so many challenges in that moment. Sometimes when you do go to work, it's kind of like an escape, because you got to hand it over to somebody else who can take over while you're gone. But always mind's going, because you're always thinking of what you're going to have to do back when you get home, right? And this is that double shift that's really, where we need to build a mental resilience to, we were never taught to fix that, right? Only the body the body was never the beginning, right? That really wasn't. The brain is the beginning, and in this brain is the rhythm, and in the brain is the timing belt. I mean, I'm always kind of bringing you into your vehicle, and because it's only one that we have, no leasing, no new buying, and it's how we take this one out onto the road and how far we want it to get us there, right? And so recently I was talking to somebody, and this is somebody that I actually know, and I, love this person dearly, but, I know that health wise, the balance that they're walking on this lane isn't full of balance, but yet somehow they believe that they are feeling balanced. And what happens is like, just like in your car, right? The car is running and running and running. And, in a car, we have lights to tell us that, we're leaking fluids, we're doing all these things. And sometimes in this conversation, it was a conversation on hydration. And hydration, of course, that's just everything about us, but people don't like that. And so this one person was telling me how, I must be doing something because I'm eliminating and something's being washed out. And, I must be doing good with the food that I'm intaking or something, because they don't like water. And, I really had to get a little bit more clearing on that understanding, because no, that doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that at all. I mean, your body has to excrete to help you survive and live. So if it's got to pull out of the tissues, it has to find that water to be released to keep you going. So these are just some small things that I wanted to bring up, because we're busy. We're moving from one thing to the next. We're racing the clock for sure. The clock that, in certain cases, that clock actually runs out of time, because it's like you've got so much to do, and really there's no time that you found in there to fit for you. That's the double shift, right? Because you're racing the clock, solving problems, but there's no stopping to see where you're at in all of this, because we're just going and going, remembering everything for everyone, and still trying to hold on to yourself to keep it together. And you do, to a point that you feel that your fuel is working, right? But honestly, if you could be honest with yourself and really look at that nourishment that you're using, is it really doing you benefits? I mean, for sure, did you wake up with 32-ounce supersized soda? I know a lot of people do that, and I know in my 20s I always had that morning soda in the morning, right? So I know I've been there, and a lot of things that I've done I could relate to in today's world, but it was because I had these classes, and I grew up learning the inside of the body, that I was able to make a move, make the change, do all these things, and complete the road constructions that I was walking on to get to my destiny, where I'm at today in this 6-decade 5th chapter. And it's just like wonderful for me, because trust me, the path wasn't easy. It was dangerous. There was a lot of, falling down rocks. I mean, earthquakes in my life, things, food. I mean, from falling out of shape to getting back into shape to working out. I mean, at 46 years old, it was when I first got that coach. So when he was putting me down to do some push-ups, couldn't even do them. Now, of course, love them, and love that today in this age, I can do. Love that. Just really love that. And that's the opportunity of when you create that carving on the road of where you're headed. If you see, because a lot of us, we don't have a purpose and a goal. And the one thing we do know is what we don't want. But sometimes if you ask, what do you want? We don't always have that answer. And that's a pretty interesting thing. I don't want a job that's going to make me work nights or put me on call, So then the opposite would be, I do want a job that's only going to work me from 7 to 1 in the afternoon or something, But the biggest thing is we always have the answers of what we don't want, more completed before we can actually answer the answers for what we do want and what is it that we're headed for. So remembering everything for everyone and still holding it together is part of that double shift. This is the new world that we're living in. And by doing this, women, we're doing more, caring more, and I mean caring and carrying things and carrying in our heart and our emotional changes. I mean, all this has an effect, but we're going through it so much that are we actually knowing that, because you could be, say, for instance, 40 years old, you were a family woman, everything was great, and you start to identify with yourself so much more. And of course, you're starting to have these inner body changes that you're starting to feel. So you start questioning that, right? But life on the outside of that part, you have your family, this and that, and suddenly there comes your mother or your father have to come live with you now. And suddenly your 40-year-old new identity that you were just getting to live in and identify with and get more identifying with yourself. Suddenly now you have a new emotional state of grace you have to step into, because now you're going to be working with a 65, 70-year-old who has medications that need to be done, who has a certain nourishment that needs to take place, they're not eating the same thing you're eating. So that means that there's that double shift. Now you got to go cooking that and taking care of those things. You have to make not only that annual screening checkup that you get for yourself, now you have to see the doctor's list and how often these specialists have to be available for your schedule at work for you to take care of this adult care that you're giving this care to. So that double shift in mentality is when, that is a big emotional mind thing. And so my biggest part of all this conversation is really going to be stronger on building that mind and bringing you to a reset, because starting with everything, actually it all begins in the brain. And in this new world, as I was saying, caring more, thinking more. Here's the truth no one ever told us, right? The world doesn't just run on our body, and it works and it runs on brain power. Today, it's not that they're looking for so much of your physique. They're looking for that mind power, right? They're looking for that flexibility. They're looking for how adjustable you are, how spontaneous you can become if they had to shift you into another department. And when I talk about going into other departments, that means in life, in that other job, the job that you're not getting paid for, you have been assigned to a new department that you've never shopped on those lanes. You've never actually sat with a caregiver for 24 hours and seen what actually takes place and what had to be given up, and what as you try to juggle it in one moment, of your life, because suddenly you find out that, all these things have to shift and change. And are you ready for that? Because this is what is happening to our women today when they go home and do this. And so this is why having more positive environments around you, supportive, emotional supportive environments around you, knowing that there's somebody that maybe you can call, that you can talk to for that emotional support, because maybe just this one moment you might have burned the whole meal that was made and now you got to start from scratch, or your freezer broke down and you just found out that you've lost all that food in the freezer. I mean, these are those suddenly things, and they're not accounted for on that list because they weren't included, right? We weren't raised to fix our bodies. We were raised, I should say, to fix our bodies through our workouts and everything, but no one taught us. No one taught us how to rebuild the mind. No one. I mean, it's out there, but some people think, no, that's not for me. That's not for me, and we just don't know that. And maybe it's not for you, but maybe you could learn it for somebody that may need that, right? I mean, because the friends that I see today, and I'm watching them, who suddenly became a caregiver to her 92-year-old mother who had to move in with her. And, she was running a business at a home and everything. And all these things really had to sit back and take place. And, that spontaneous call, or suddenly you have to rush them to the hospital because something's happening to them. And, the time that that's taking while you're waiting there, waiting to be accepted in, all these long term approaches that, again, when you've never shopped in this lane and that department that you've just been assigned to, it's really going to be a double shift of mentality. It's going to be a very hard form of growing up and character building, because when we go to work, we develop character, right? And that character is developed for our responsibilities, and eventually it becomes into that diligence. And the virtue of it all is that perseverance, that we can do it because we can do it, right? But no one taught us how to straighten the mental pathways that keeps us going. Yet today the workplace demands exactly that, right? And that's what's so important about today, the timing belt of the female mind. A woman's mind is like a timing belt. And, really, that's probably why a man calls his car, has a female name for her, or when he's talking about that car, he calls it a her, because there's a lot of our parts are in that, engine to keep us going. And that timing belt, it keeps us in rhythm, right? The focus, the memory, the emotional regulations, the decision making, all these things that the energy and our sleep. And this is why in the past episodes, building you up through all those different things, talking about the nourishment and the importance of all that things. All this is to balance because of our hormone state, the state that you're walking in right now in the workplace. And are you nourishing them? Is that fuel the correct fuel that you need to flourish? Is the garden being fertilized? And are you raising a paradise, or is it just let go? And dumpsters are starting to add up and all the junk is just collecting. And as I said, the body's leaching off of things to create a hydration in your body to keep you alive. What is your fuel, and how do you see yourself on this mind shift? Because this isn't designated to one person, but we do know somebody that's doing this. And if you really sat and heard them, you'd understand more about, how this is affecting everyone. And when we have a hormone shift in all this, when stress compounds, when sleep disappears, when the mental load grows, that's what liberating menopause is all about. It really wants to show you that, it's those hormones that we have to consider and talk about in our bodies amongst everything else. But as we're riding through this lane of life, it's the timing that slips. Not because we're weak, and it's not because we're failing for sure, but because our internal rhythm is carrying more than it was ever designed to do. And when we're doing this, carrying it alone, we can't explain it to somebody because they don't understand. And, especially if you're a woman living in a whole man's world, right? You have sons and you have a husband, and, there's not a lot that you can reach out to. You're too busy, so you can't make that phone call to call a friend. And even when you call your friend, she's sitting there with the same thoughts. And then you try to get to the doctor, and then they kind of tell you that it's just your age, it's just something that you're going through. You got a high stress level. You have to understand all these different things, but it's not. It's really being the coach in your own life to know that these signals are changing and what you need to do to rebuild that. So, there's just so much to talk to you about on this subject. And this is why, we feel off, we feel foggy. And, we really want to be running in time, on time, with that belt in sequence with our lives. So, just to talk about these few things, and really this conversation, I'm telling you, I just love talking about it. I love, knowing that there's so much for you to learn about yourselves. And it's only because I was that kid that grew up in the hospitals and grew up with the doctors that I get to come and bring this to you in layman's terms, bring you some clarity on really understanding this road that you're on and how we can drive through it into pathways that you never dreamed can really be there waiting for you. So until our next conversation, take care, everyone. This is Liberating Menopause coming to you from PRConnectionsRadio.com. I'm looking forward to talking more about resetting the mind, building that mindset, and doing these great workouts, because this is where we're at today, and it's the mind power that we're after. Body works isn't enough, but we need that brain power. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Lisa Vasquez, hosting you today. Bye.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.